leprechaun ice cream coming up on Great Day St. Louis.
Oh, my
yes.
goodness.
All right, Steve. Thank you very much. But first, do you find yourself yelling at your kids a little too much? Maybe you know some parents who are constantly yelling at their children.
Like me, well, some therapists say yelling is the new spanking. It's no longer socially acceptable to spank your child, so parents have resorted, in many cases, to yelling. Here's what you had to say about it.
Do I ever yell at my kids? As Peter over there says, is shaking his head, yes.
I yell at my kids sometimes, not very often though, when they don't do their chores.
I never yell at my kids.
I never yell at them in public though. I kind of grit my teeth and talk under my breath.
Yes, I believe it's very annoying when people yell at their kids.
I am annoyed when other people yell at their kids in public.
I'm embarrassed for them and for myself when I hear them yelling.
Sometimes yes.
And
Well, here to talk about the effects of yelling at your kids, or anybody else's kids, I imagine, is parenting coach Pam Dyson. First of all, guilty. I think we all are at times.
We are.
And one of the things that you and I talked about that I do want to touch on before we're finished here is that there are times when it may be an effective effort, but more often than not, we overdo it. So tell us, first of all, you say that spanking is, or yelling is the new spanking. What do you mean by that?
Well, spanking has this connotation that it's not appropriate. It's just not accepted in society like it used to be.
Right.
And sometimes it can be considered a form of abuse. So usually parents are staying away from spanking. So what happens is, what are they going to do instead?
Right.
So they might resort to yelling.
Okay. So yelling can be an effective technique, but it can also be, if you're not careful, on the abusive side as well,
Well, it
depending on
can.
what kind of verbiage you're using when you're yelling.
Exactly, and if you do it all the time.
All right, so often parents who yell have children who yell,
Sure,
is that correct?
yeah. Who models for kids? Parents do.
Yeah.
And so if you yell at every little thing, your kids are probably going to yell at every little thing.
And that's not good.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not good. Because what are you, is that how you want them to solve problems? Is that how you want them to find solutions to things that frustrate them, is
Right.
to yell?
Parenting is a very stressful thing.
It is.
And being a kid is a very stressful thing. And maybe sometimes we act that out by yelling. And it's a good idea to just get a handle on that and not overdo it, because sometimes raising your voice can be an effective technique, no?
It can. It can. If you do it occasionally, if your child's in danger, yelling might stop them from being hurt.
Sure.
Or it might get their attention if you do it occasionally. If you do it too much, they might start to tune you out because they're just used to hearing you do it, and maybe they know it's not going to end in anything different.
And I hate to oversimplify things, but the same technique works with my dog. I yell at my dog all the time. It's time to come in. Get in here. Get in here. And he just, he does that every day. I'm not going to listen to him. I'm going to sniff around for a while more.
Exactly. And if you're a parent and you're yelling all the time and it's not effective, why are you still doing it? Maybe it's time to think of a new strategy.
It's almost like crying wolf. It's almost like if we went on and did the weather every day and said, okay, there's a tornado watch today, and we come on tomorrow and say the same thing and the same thing, nobody's going to pay attention to us.
And that's what happens with your children if you yell at them consistently.
And can it cause, I know we talked about that you can, that the kids become yellers as well, but there can be, I would think, other long-term adverse effects as well.
Sure. Your kids might learn to yell back at you.
Sure.
They might start yelling at their friends.
Could be problems at school.
Exactly. And is that something you want your child to learn to do, is to just yell every time they're frustrated?
One of the techniques that I've tried to practice, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong with this, over the past few years in my life has been something that I call the 24-hour rule. If something really upsets me to the point that my blood pressure rises and I feel like I stop and I say, you know what, I'm not going to respond to this for 24 hours. Now, you don't always have that luxury with a child who's painting on the wall or whatever, but sometimes you can practice that kind of a technique, because I think many times when we yell, it's a clear indication that we're out of control.
Exactly. And so what do you need to do? Maybe you need to stop, regroup, take a deep breath, step out of the room. What's going to work? If your child's messy room makes you yell, can you shut the door?
Yeah, we can both use a timeout occasionally.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with saying to your child, you know, I'm sorry I yelled at you.
Yeah.
I need to take a break. we'll talk about this
so
later.
how can we break that habit though if we are yellers? How can we do that?
Well, you need to learn what your triggers are. So if a child's messy room triggers you to yell, can you shut the door, take a deep breath before you open the door and go in? If your sibling's yelling because they're arguing over a video game, does that set you off? Can you step out of the room, take a deep breath, and decide a more calm approach instead of yelling at them?
And I think the most effective one on the bottom of that list, think about how you want your child to remember you down the road.
Exactly. When they get older and they reminisce about their childhood, do you want them to say, gosh, remember every time we did something wrong, Mom started yelling at us?
Yep.
Is that what you want them to remember? Or do you want them to remember a parent who handled things in a nice, calm, and controlled manner?
Makes perfect sense. Pam, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's a great job. Here's, Carol, here's an effective yelling. It can make you age a little quicker and bring in those gray hairs, right?
This is true. My mother told me, Kent, that I was the reason that her gray hair came in. And I still remember that, and it's funny now, but maybe it was true. So today we want to learn how to work with gray hair. No matter what reason you got the gray hair, we want to help you with that, ways to cover it up if that's